Hey, welcome back to another exciting episode of Mr. Takeda Teaches Algebra, the Math 8 edition. I'm your host, Mr. Takeda, and I'm going to teach you some math right now. This is lesson 1.4 on rewriting equations and formulas. This is, to me, one of the most important skills a young math student has to master, because once you can manipulate equations, it makes the understanding of everything else that much easier. So let's take a look at what I'm talking about. So first of all, some vocabulary. An equation that has two or more variables is called a literal equation. Two or more variables, a literal equation. To rewrite a literal equation, solve for one variable in terms of the other. What do we mean by that? Well, that means that if we have x and y together, we're going to talk about what x equals by itself. X is by itself. When we solve for a variable, we get it by itself. Everything on the other side will be what x is equal to, but the y is going to be on that side. Well, let's take a look at some examples. I'm sure I didn't describe that very well, but let's see if I can explain it by example better. So I've got this 2y plus 5x equals 6, and we want to solve it for y. I want to try and get y by itself. So this will be y in terms of x. So we're going to follow the same thing we do to solve. This is a regular two-step equation if you think about it. What's happening to y? It's being multiplied by 2, and then 5x is being added to that. So just kind of disregard or put in the back of your mind that there's that variable there. We kind of have to act like it's just a regular number. So the first thing I'm going to do is subtract 5x from both sides. So 5x minus 5x is indeed just 0, so I'm going to just cross those out. 2y equals, now on this side, this is where things get a little confusing for kids, because they're going to say, well, they're going to try to make this like 1x or something like that, but these aren't like terms. And because these aren't like terms, I can just write it as an expression, 6 minus 5x. So that's what I'm going to do. And now, what are we going to do to isolate y? I'm going to undo this multiplication of 2. I'm going to divide both sides by 2. And I say both sides by 2. That means everything on this right side. So 1y on the left over here. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Over here now I've got this odd number 5 over an even number 2. So that's going to result in negative 5/2 x. So this is the answer. This is the rewritten equation. These equations are equivalent, but this one has been written, we solved it for y. This is the thing that's by itself. We're solving, which means isolate the y, solving for y in terms of x. That just means that the x is on the other side. That if I was to fill this in with an x, I could solve for y. All right, so this is a rewritten equation, solved for y in terms of x. Rewriting a formula is really the same thing. It's just another type of equation. It's just an equation. The formula for the surface area S of a cone is S equals pi r squared plus pi r L. We want to solve for the slant height L. We want to solve for this. All right, so this is where things get a little bit trickier. We want to isolate this L. All right, so how are we going to do that? I think the first thing we want to do here is subtract out this pi r squared. So I'm going to subtract pi r squared here and here. Now, like on the previous example, I can't really simplify this side, so I've got this large S minus pi r squared equals pi r L. This is all multiplication over here, and since this is all multiplication, I can divide out the parts I don't want. Pi and r, and the same thing over here, pi and r. So the pi's here cancel, the r's cancel, and now L is by itself. So I've isolated the L, and the other side looks like this, pi r squared over pi r. And that's it. We solved for L in terms of everything else, really. Okay, and then we have converting our temperature formula. Now, they give us this C, ignore this, the Celsius equals 5/9 times Fahrenheit minus 32. We want to solve for F. So the first thing, we have this fraction, and we've already had a couple examples where we want to try to get rid of this fraction. I'm going to multiply both sides by 9/5. Okay, so the 5's will cancel, the 9's will cancel, and that's going to look like 9/5 C equals F minus 32. All right, so this is quite simple after this. How do I get rid of the minus 32? I'm going to add 32 to both sides. And again, I can't really simplify this side. All I can do is write it as an expression, 9/5 C plus 32 equals F. Okay, I know that's a lot, and I know this is kind of a difficult thing right now. We're doing math without actually calculating. You can't really use a calculator for much of this, right? Because there's no calculations to happen. But try to get this in your notes, and we'll really dig into this next time we're in class together. All right, see you then. Bye-bye.